What's kind of like your cornerstone inspiration, like touchstone thing that like you draw from?
I think the thing I go to most is the music. I think that's always the first place I start. And then when I can see movement at certain parts of the music, or I connect to some of the dynamics from the music, that's where my creativity really starts to shine.
Does it help if it's a specific type of music, or anything will do it for you? Or
I think there are stories to be told in all sorts of styles of music.
Okay.
And I think that's where listening to, I grew up with music, so that's always going to be my go-to.
What do you mean you grew up with music?
I was in choir since I was a little boy. I was in band forever. That was a huge part of my life, actually. So dance was actually not something I was super confident in ever.
You were in band, or you were in a band? Or
I was in band.
Band, like what was your instrument?
Trumpet and French horn.
That's awesome.
For years.
Do you find that your musical background influences your aerial practice or even your teaching?
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us about that?
I think it's something I really try and instill in my students every class. Listen to the music, let your body react to the music, and that's what I call dancing.
Is there a particular way of training when you're learning an instrument or practicing an instrument that translates into training for aerial?
I would say just practice makes perfect, Really working out any kinks is kind of your responsibility with your own practice. And so I think it's about taking responsibility in infusing dance into your practice. That makes a more interesting performance, personally.
Have you ever thought about doing an aerial act with trumpet?
I have not thought about using an instrument, but I have thought about using my vocal training to kind of infuse it into a new form of performance that people don't get to see very often.
Dominic, what was your first exposure to aerial?
First exposure ever, I think, was here at the studio. I randomly made a wonderful friend who invited me to take their pole class. And then once I was in the studio...
Who was that?
Armando, actually. And ever since then, body and pole has been where I've discovered a new form of artistry than I used to really practice. And then doing work study, aerial was something that I was super attracted to.
How did you gravitate towards the hoop then?
I think it was just one of those things where it's the one I connected to, more so than anything else.
Is there something specific?
I love the weightlessness. I love being able to, I think I could dance more freely in a hoop than when I was on the ground, typically. And I think that's only because of what I learned through my pole training, which was to find your own movement.
How often do you go back to the pole, or do you ever really go back to the pole?
I wish I could be in pole way more often than I am. I've been training some Mondays with Sam Starr, who was one of my mentors before. I would love to be in more classes, but when it comes to free time.
So what would be your recommendation to some of your primarily aerial students? What would you say to them as far as getting comfortable with that?
I always say push yourselves past the boundaries that you think you're able to do, right? And it all comes from trying it once, right? It may not stick, but if you go to a polography class or a low flow heels class, you may, even an intro to pole class, you may find things in your own body movement that are different than what you're asked to do in an aerial skills class.
And when you're teaching, do you have a thing you say, a catchphrase, or something you just can't help but say while you're teaching?
Always. It's always, either if you don't, it's always, if you mess up, just dance. Just dance.
So just dance for stuff.
Yeah. Listen to the music. Let it influence how your body moves. And that's just what I consider dancing. And no one can move the way that you move. No one can do you better than you.